Bumgardner with AAFMAA, the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. For over 144 years, we have been serving our military community to be the premier provider of financial solutions for the American Armed Forces. As a director of partnership and member engagement, I talk with other nonprofit organizations about what they are doing to help service members, their families, veterans, and the military community at large. And today we're talking about the Special Forces community, how the unique aspects of the Special Operations Forces, known as SOF, community impact long-term health, family, finances, and their legacy. And I'm really honored today to have KaLea Lehman here. She is a SOF spouse and the founder and executive director of the Military Special Operations Family Collaborative, known as MSOFC. So it is a nonprofit public health initiative that provides research-based health and wellness education and training for the special operations community. The collaborative's goal is to improve organizational learning with unique data and tools, promote relevant and effective force and family programs and resources, as well as develop research initiatives to tackle complex problems that are facing the special operations community. So KaLea, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. We appreciate this so much. We love the products you guys do, and even have one of our advisory board members contributing to your spouse link writing. And so it's an honor to be here.
That's great. So tell me just a little bit. You are the founder and executive director of MSOFC. So how did you come to realize there was a need in this particular space of the military, the Special Forces community?
Yeah, so I've been a spouse to a special operations officer for about 15 years. And we were in a unique position around 2015, 2016, where it just was very clear that it didn't matter what unit you were part of in special operations, if you were a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret or an Air Force special operator, that like families and service members uniquely responded to stress and hard events uniformly but differently than conventional units. And when I went back to graduate school, like my background is in sociology and policy and public health. And I was like, I'm going to dig into this phenomenon that I see. And what I found after I did all the research in grad school was the environments are totally different. Special operations, regardless of what unit you're in, is a chronic stress environment. So there's never a break. And conventional units, while they have high stresses, they're characterized totally different. And so the resources, how you communicate them, the coping strategies actually look totally different among different units. And this is not recognized in any healthcare, family life resources, or most unit resources.
Wow. It's a little bit from what you're describing. I was a military spouse for 11 years, but not with Special Forces. And it sounds like it's a little bit like they're on an island by themselves in a way, kind of operating just on their own, in their own little space. And some of the maybe base or post resources don't really apply to them, or they can't get them. So what is the mission of MSOFC and kind of the example of work that ties together what you're doing?
Yeah. So we work to enable the sustained success of the warfighter and their family. And we do that in a unique way. Most organizations, most nonprofits, there's quite a few of them, support units. Like they might support Army Special Forces or the PJs, or they might support Navy SEALs or Marine Raiders. We focus on the whole, all of Special Operations Command, and getting resources, health education and information and expert feedback to families, to leaders, to the people in their units, so that they can connect to care that's effective, and they can adapt so that they find belonging and connection in their community wherever they're at. And we work to identify like the root cause of why problems exist, so the breakdown is, because usually the problems are so complicated, and they have deep roots that go beyond any one subcommittee or some community and any one service branch. And so we kind of have that background to be really transparent and collaborative and identify the root cause of the problem.
Yeah. That's great that you have. I mean, you have a personal background in that, and surrounding, with other people that do. So let's talk just a little bit about kind of the needs of the SOF community and how they're different from other communities within the active duty component, how they're kind of on an island by themselves. And how like MSOFC connects to them, right? To be able to let them know that there's a place for them.
Yeah. So I think uniformly everywhere in the United States and in conventional and soft units, loneliness and isolation is a problem.
Sure.
But how you go about that, solving that and connecting people looks different. And it has to be different because everyone's individual, their lifestyles are individual. And until you get that relevant to people, they won't connect to resources, whether it's healthcare, whether it's finances, whatever it is. So for special operations in particular, our families move less, but they never leave a high stress, completely unpredictable environment. They don't ever have a time where they can rely 100% on their service member to, do medical appointments, to do finances, to pay the bills, to kind of give the family members a break. And so what that leads to is their habits on a day-to-day look different. And the way that they become aware of what their needs are and their experience and gain confidence, and it looks totally different. And so it's kind of the difference of, a sprinter's got like a 100-meter race he's running and runs as hard as he can to the finish line, triumphant or not, can stop and reflect on that 100 meters. SOF is like an ultra marathon. And reflecting on it, even pinpointing like how to improve, get better, how to get stronger, is so hard to do. And it's hard to get confidence in it because, like, how many ultra marathoners do you know? And and so when you look at like how do you thrive, or how do you have a really successful career in special operations and then walk out at like 20 years still highly capable, knowing who you are, knowing what you want to do, with strong friendships, the path to that looks different.
Yeah.
And for special operations, it looks like completely different day-to-day coping mechanisms. So being very intentional about birthdays, celebrations, key milestones, taking vacation, day-to-day self-care, regardless of whether they're training, deployed, or home. Those habits, the way you communicate them, look different. Prioritizing things like family dinner, learning difficult conversation strategies so that you have meaningful conversations every day. You're not tabling till the deployment's over, because guess what? The surprise deployment is 2 weeks from their return.
Yeah.
So we're not placeholding celebration or hard conversation or help seeking anything. We're building it into the wild lifestyle we have with extra intentionality, with succinct resources.
Yeah. And I love that you're not trying to change the landscape. You're trying to say, let's fit within it. You're running these ultra marathons, right? And the next one's in 2 weeks. What are things you can do in this 2 weeks to try and maybe better connect as a family unit, or be able to take a pause for yourself, which is so important. And you mentioned something that was really interesting, in that the SOF community is not moving as much. So they are more a part of a local community, right? Than they are maybe the other kind of active duty components that are moving every 2 to 4 years very regularly. They're staying in one community for a long time. And so, like you kind of talked about, there's some maybe cultural and systematic barriers, right? They're impacting that when you're running these ultra marathons, which I love that analogy. So what are kind of some of the resources for somebody who says, I am in this space and this speaks to me. Where can they kind of go to learn a little bit more about the support that your organization's offering?
Yeah. So what we find is that it looks a little different depending where you are. If you're a new family, you need unique skills to thrive and build them into your day to day, so that you're not benchmarking key aspects of what it means to have a full life, and what it means to connect and belong in a community. So what happens is, without those skills, people do isolate, because they're like, no one understands the shoes I'm walking in. No one gets this path we're running. I'm gonna like hunker down, go into survival mode, and do my own thing. And we have really gifted and intelligent spouses and families. They start small businesses, they do higher degrees, they buy property and become like key components of their local communities. And so everything we do is about enabling the spouses, the children, and the service members to be the best they can be every day with unique skills. So what that would mean is like how they would identify stress. You've got to be hyper aware of identifying stress. How do you regulate stress? How do you have the right words to help seek in a way that's efficient and doesn't just put you on a runaround? How do you build a support system where you're at that gives you, that equips you with information, that helps you give back, that gives you close friends, that, um, you know, it's versatile and it's functional and you're confident in it. And all of these things look a little different, depending on your circumstances and your community. And so what we do is we get that skills training to families. We try to put it in units in our nonprofit partner program so they can do it wherever their footprint is. And then we also help them gain a confidence in what it means to be a special operations family, to take root in the history and the values and the legacy of the unit that they are part of and supporting, so that they're confident in it and they see their role even when it gets hard. And one of the things we've done for that's actually brand new, it's about to roll out now, is we've spent the last 3 years writing, it's a cookbook, but it's really a lifestyle book that gives you conversation starters, games, that equips you with language of the community, like that you wouldn't know unless you were part of it. But it gives you historical highlights so you can see what you're part of that goes back previous generations, some of them, hundreds of years, like, and you can own those traditions in your own family. And this book, it's called The Warrior's Table, and it's really the foundation of our family programs, because it gives people the words to tell their story in a way that is accessible, regardless of what community you're part of, or even if you're a civilian, because sometimes explaining the lifestyle is hard, and that's one of the biggest barriers, to success when you're in one place for 18 years and your military story looks very different from the one most people hear about.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I think that, a lot of data and kind of the statistics out there is saying that as service members are transitioning, some of them are having a harder time. The special forces community has a really hard time in that. And some of it's around that stigma. And so what a great way to have a really kind of non-confrontational, very easy way to start a dialogue, a cookbook of, this is something we can integrate into the family, that we can talk about, stress, or this might open up a dialogue to, it's okay to say these things. It's okay to feel these things and to talk about them, because that's how you're going to better yourself. And so I really like how you guys kind of pinpointed that and figured out a way to do that in a very welcoming environment. Because, staying in one community for 18 years is not traditional military life at all. And especially with the other person gone a lot. With that, of course, we think about, and you mentioned earlier about finances, right? About the health and well-being that impacts the family's kind of legacy, and that financial well-being, the medical well-being. What's kind of MSOFC's work with that and financial awareness?
So that is a landscape we are looking to build resources for families on, because what happens is the wear and tear just looks different on special operations families. Like, yes, they have added pay for some of the hardship, but those change with every mission, with every training. So it's not reliable.
Right.
And the lifestyle is one that is completely unpredictable. So it's extremely a heavy lift on the caregiver at home. It can make going back to school or starting a business or working just like, frankly, a very humbling exercise, because there's no end to the constant juggle. It can really wear a spouse down. And one of the biggest questions we hear among our spouses is about life insurance. They typically pay the bills, manage the bills and the insurance, but life insurance is unique because when you're the person holding the whole house up,
Oh,
having a peace of mind that somebody can carve the path behind you and has the tools to do so is huge.
yeah.
And that gives a lot of our spouses peace of mind, but it's also very hard to get because their job risks are so high. So it can be unaffordable when you go the wrong route. And so having life insurance, where to go, the right questions to ask, the how to ensure that you have enough to have peace of mind. And then the other thing is, you know, all the other financial business and banking accounts that
Mhm.
allow you to have the tools to maneuver, start a business that doesn't cost a ton of money,
Yeah.
that's not super complicated, that can move with you, but also like can be steady. That is another challenge that our families have. And what we try to do is put out the information and tools so they can pursue their goals with a peace of mind. Um, Regardless of where they're at and what they're doing, and help them feel confident in doing that, I would say is one of the biggest things. And that's really where telling your story is key, because if you're insecure about your story, you don't seek help, whether it's for finances, whether it's for healthcare, whether it's just getting a babysitter.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and so we try to give them the, like, identify the problem. Here's the words for your story. Here's where you can go that's
Mhm.
actually going to work and not be a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And this is the next step after that.
Yeah. Well, and you have a great website, which we'll put up on the screen and we'll put in the chat
Yeah.
for everybody. It's, MSOFC.org, and it's a great place to go to be able to get those resources. And you talked about a couple of things with, we know military spouse unemployment is the highest demographic. We're at 22%. And the underemployed is somewhere between 31%, but people say it could be as high as 50% because they're just not even being captured. So and a lot of that, I would imagine, in the special forces community is just like you said, that it makes it almost impossible for that spouse to work outside the home when this person is just running a marathon all the time. How are you going to be able to do that and manage that? And then, of course, that affects finances and that affects your well-being. And a lot of times, military spouses, I know there was a point in my time when I didn't think about, if something were to happen to me, right? Who's going to take care of all of this? And how are they financially going to do that? And that's a great thing to make note about, protecting as a military spouse your life, right? And life insurance to be able to protect your family and to continue, to be able to protect your service members so they can continue their job with as much of a financial burden. So it's all connected. And I think that that's something that your organization that MSOFC does so well is that you realize it's all connected. And so you say, how can we pinpoint, how can we get into this space because it's connected to this space, to the service member and their family. So I really thank you, for what you're doing and for the work that you're doing and making it accessible to everyone. So it's awesome.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. Yeah, it's our mission is an honor. It started because this is our community, and when you see people routinely say like, "There's no resources for our families, nothing works for our families, no one gets our story." Our mission is to equip everyone that has a handprint on the special operations community to help them thrive, whether it's healthcare, whether it's day-to-day habits and routines that enable them to be the best they can be, or whether it's tools like finances that actually enable you to do things like self-care, get medical care, start a business, all of those things that are so essential to building a family legacy and living a happy, fulfilling life, and not just having a good 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now there's a place. So anybody who's out there, who wants to support both civilian and military, right? Because these military families are in the community, and they're in the community for a long time. So there's kind of a civilian counterpart there to support them. And so there is a place to go now. It is, msofc.org. And I hope everybody goes and finds that resource if you need it, or you just want to learn more about it.
Yeah. And Sarah, one thing is with everything we do, we are highly collaborative and transparent. So like in the back of our family dinner book is a resource of all the organizations that are essential for families to know about to thrive. We have our Connecting Soft Resource Directory that we just launched, which is ongoing with resources that are relevant and why they're relevant for the community. And that has a plan to build to be an educational platform to actually certify resources over the next 5 years with the right support to back that. And then all of our education programs, we pull in partners that provide the best aspect of those resources, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's family counseling, whatever it is. Like, we're always trying to elevate partners in a very transparent and collaborative way, because it takes a village at home and it takes a village to equip it at the community level.
Yeah, it does. Well, that's amazing. Everybody should get this book, right? Everybody should reach out and get this more than just a cookbook, right? It's a place of resource, a place of conversation, a place of being, right? Knowing that you fit in somewhere within the military, this community. So it's tremendous what you're doing. It's making an impactful difference, which is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So I really thank you for coming on today and for joining us on this AAFMAA LinkedIn Live and telling a little bit about the story of special operations and how those in the SOF community can get that assistance. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, I'm Sarah Bumgardner, and that will wrap up our AAFMAA Live for today. If you would like more information about AAFMAA and financial readiness within the military community, of course, you can subscribe right here to our QR code. Otherwise, I thank KaLea again for joining, and I thank you all for joining today, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.